A virgin loved a millionaire. He betrayed her, but her sister's revenge made him regret forever. Hello, dear Alcott Stories family. Welcome back to another breathtaking journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. Today, we bring you a story that will touch your heart, stir your emotions, and keep you on the edge of your seat till the very last moment. This isn't just a story, it's an experience, a tale of a young, innocent woman who gave her heart to a ruthless millionaire, only to be shattered by his betrayal. But fate had something unexpected in store for him, and you won't believe how it all unfolds. We've poured our hearts into making this story deeply emotional and unforgettable, just for you. So, grab a warm drink, sit back, and let's dive into this roller coaster of love, pain, and an unforgettable revenge. And don't forget, we're a family here at Alcott Stories. Your love and support mean everything to us. So, if you enjoyed the story, show your love by liking, sharing, and commenting. We read every single comment, and your words inspire us to bring you even more amazing stories. Now, let's begin. But remember, watch till the end. You won't want to miss a single moment. The city lights shimmered in the distance as Serena Carter stepped out of the cab, adjusting the hem of her elegant yet modest evening gown. The towering glass venue of the business gala reflected her image, young, ambitious, and full of dreams. But tonight, she wasn't just here to admire the grandeur. She was here to chase an opportunity. The air smelled of expensive champagne and polished ambition. Men in tailored suits and women in dazzling gowns surrounded her, engaged in conversations that dripped with power. Serena's heart bounded. She was just a small-town girl with a vision, yet she had worked tirelessly to build her startup. All she needed now was an investor to believe in her dream. She took a deep breath, clutching the small brochure she had designed herself. It wasn't glossy, like the others being exchanged across the room, but it carried her passion and dedication. As she navigated the room, her eyes scanned for potential investors, but instead, they landed on him, Alexander Knight. He stood across the hall, surrounded by men who laughed a little too hard at his words, and women who gazed at him with admiration and desire. His presence was undeniable, a tall, ruthless figure in a perfectly tailored black suit with icy blue eyes that seemed to pierce through whoever dared to meet his gaze. Serena had read about him, a self-made millionaire, feared and respected in the corporate world. He was known for breaking businesses and hearts alike, a man who valued power over emotions. And yet, when their eyes met, something shifted in the air. His gaze lingered on her, too intense, too consuming. Serena, feeling the weight of his attention, quickly turned away, pretending not to notice. But deep inside, her heart raced. An unexpected encounter. She continued her mission, approaching a few potential investors, explaining her vision with excitement and determination. But the responses were all the same. Polite dismissals, feigned interest, and empty promises. Deflated, she walked toward the balcony to catch her breath. Not many people come out here during these events. The deep, commanding voice made her spin around. Alexander stood there, too close, too confident, leaning against the railing, as if he owned not just the building, but the whole world. Serena swallowed. I just needed some fresh air, he smirked, or an escape from the vultures inside. A small chuckle escaped her lips. Something like that. Alexander's gaze never wavered, studying her like an unsolved mystery. I noticed you inside, handing out those brochures. What is it you're so passionate about? His question caught her off guard. She hadn't expected the Alexander Knight to care about small businesses. Taking a deep breath, she explained her startup, a sustainable fashion brand aimed at making ethical fashion accessible to all. She spoke with conviction and passion, her eyes lighting up as she described her dream. Alexander listened intently, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he took the brochure from her hand, scanning it briefly before tucking it into his jacket pocket. I admire ambition, he finally said, and I admire women who know what they want. His voice was low, deliberate. There was something undeniably magnetic about him, something dangerous that wanted her to keep her distance. But she didn't. Instead, she said, "And what do you want, Mr. Knight?" His lips curled into a smirk. "Right now. Another drink. Care to join me?" A dangerous attraction. That night changed everything. What was supposed to be a simple networking event turned into an intoxicating game of stolen glances and whispered conversations. Alexander was relentless, pursuing her in ways that made her heart race and mind rebel. He sent extravagant flowers to her office, invited her to private dinners at the city's most luxurious restaurants, and made her feel like the center of his world. Despite warnings from her family, especially her younger sister Maya, Serena allowed herself to fall. She believed in love, love that could bridge differences, love that could soften even the coldest hearts. And Alexander, he gave her everything: attention, passion, and a promise of forever. One night, under a starlit sky, Alexander pulled her close, his breath warm against her skin. "Marry me, Serena. Be mine forever." Serena's heart stopped. She searched his face for doubt, for hesitation. But all she saw was a man who had everything except her. Blinded by love, she said yes. Little did she know, she was about to marry a man who never truly loved, only possessed. The world watched in awe as Serena Carter became Mrs. Alexander Knight. The wedding was the kind people only saw in magazines. A lavish, opulent affair, held in one of the grandest mansions in the city. The who's who of high society were present. Business moguls, celebrities, and politicians, all there to witness the union of a ruthless millionaire and the beautiful woman who captured his attention. Serena stood at the grand entrance, dressed in pure white, the intricate lace of her gown shimmering under the golden chandeliers. The long, flowing veil framed her delicate features, her dark curls cascading over her shoulders. She was a vision, a dream turned reality, and yet something felt off. Her heart pounded, not just from excitement, but from a strange, unshakable feeling deep within her chest. A bride's doubt. As she walked down the aisle, her eyes locked onto Alexander Knight, the man waiting for her at the altar. He was breathtakingly handsome, dressed in an immaculate black tuxedo, standing tall with his usual air of dominance. His blue eyes bore into her as if she were already his possession, and the power in his stance sent a shiver down her spine. Serena should have felt lucky. He had given her the world, gifts, luxury, attention. But standing before him now, she saw something unsettling in his gaze. It wasn't warmth. It wasn't love. It was possession. "I'm just nervous," she reassured herself, forcing a smile. Then, as she reached him, Alexander took her hand, his grip firm, almost unyielding. "Mine," he whispered against her ear before pulling back. The ceremony began, the minister's voice echoing through the grand hall. Serena could hear the admiration in the whispers around her, women sighing in envy, men praising Alexander's fortune in securing such a stunning bride. But in the front row, sitting rigid with a sharp glare, was Maya, Serena's younger sister. Maya's warning. Maya had never approved of Alexander. She had seen through his charming facade, the coldness in his gaze that Serena refused to acknowledge. Now, as she watched her sister pledge her life to him, Maya felt an unbearable weight in her chest. When the minister asked, "Do you, Alexander Knight, take Serena Carter to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Alexander's lips curled into a small smirk before he spoke the word. "I do." His voice was deep, smooth, but lacking something vital, genuine emotion. Serena turned to say her vows, pouring her heart into every word, believing in the forever she imagined with him. But as she slipped the ring onto his finger, she swore she saw something cold flicker in his eyes, as if the moment held no deeper meaning to him. Maya clenched her fists. After the ceremony, as the couple moved through the reception, Maya pulled Serena aside. "Sis, don't do this," Maya pleaded, gripping her hand. "Rich men like him don't love, they own." Serena sighed. "Maya, stop. I know what I'm doing." "No, you don't," Maya hissed. "You think you changed him, but men like him don't change. You're just something new for him to claim." Serena's chest tightened. "You don't understand. He loves me." Maya's voice softened, but her eyes were fierce. "Then why does he look at you like a trophy, not a woman?" Serena pulled away, shaking her head. "You're wrong." Maya exhaled sharply, stepping back. "I just hope you don't realize it too late." A honeymoon of passion and lies. Despite her sister's warnings, Serena let herself be swept away by the dream. Alexander took her to a private island, one of the many properties he owned. The ocean stretched endlessly, the golden beaches untouched, a paradise meant only for them. The nights were intoxicating. Alexander made her feel desired, worshipped, his lips tracing every inch of her skin, his hands possessive and demanding. Serena believed she had truly captured his heart. She lived for the way he whispered her name in the darkness, how he held her as if she were his world. But Alexander was a man of desires, not devotion, and what Serena didn't know was that love had never been part of his plan. While she lay tangled in silk sheets, believing in the fairy tale, Alexander was already growing restless. Because to him, marriage wasn't about love, it was about control. And Serena had no idea what awaited her beyond the honeymoon. A year of devotion, a lifetime of lies. Serena had spent 1 year as Alexander's wife, and despite the warnings from her sister Maya, she gave him her all. She loved him deeply, blindly. She woke up early to prepare his coffee, just the way he liked it. Black, no sugar. She listened attentively when he spoke about his business. Even though his world of ruthless deals and power plays was so different from hers, she believed in him, believed that beneath his cold, distant exterior, there was a man who could truly love her. But Serena was a fool to believe in fairy tales. A husband drifting away. In the beginning, Alexander had been passionate, attentive. He had showered her with lavish gifts, stolen kisses, whispered promises. But as time passed, things changed. The man who once couldn't keep his hands off her was now too busy to notice her at all. It started with late nights at work. "Another meeting, Serena," Alexander would say, buttoning up his expensive suit. "Don't wait up." At first, she believed him. But then came the secret phone calls. Serena would walk into the room, and Alexander would end his call abruptly, his jaw tightened, his gaze unreadable. "Who was that?" she asked one night, trying to sound casual. Work, he said flatly, then kissed her forehead before walking away. And then there was the perfume, a scent that wasn't hers. It clung to his clothes, a soft floral fragrance, delicate yet unmistakably foreign. Serena didn't wear that perfume. So, who did? The night of doubt, one evening, Serena sat alone in their grand mansion, her fingers wrapped around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. She had made his favorite dinner, steak, medium rare, with a side of red wine, but his plate remained untouched. The clock struck midnight. She reached for her phone, her fingers hovering over his number. She hesitated, her heart heavy with unease. Then her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Your husband isn't where you think he is. Serena's heart stopped. Her breath hitched, her grip tightening around the phone. Her pulse pounded in her ears, drowning out everything else. She stared at the screen, her mind racing. Who sent this? Why? Is this a lie? Or the truth I've been too blind to see? Slowly, with trembling hands, she typed back, Who are you? What do you mean? But there was no response, only silence. A silence that screamed louder than any answer could. Denial or acceptance. Serena tried to push the thought away, tried to drown herself in excuses. It's just a prank. Maybe he's really working late. Maybe I'm overthinking. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. She could feel it in the way Alexander's kisses lacked warmth, in the way he no longer held her as if she was his world, in the way he always seemed distant, distracted, absent. Tears pricked her eyes. Had she been nothing more than a temporary thrill to him, a beautiful trophy he had claimed and then forgotten? She thought back to Maya's words on her wedding night, words she had ignored. Rich men like him don't love, they own. Was Maya right all along? The decision, Serena wiped her tears, anger and pain twisting inside her. She needed to know the truth. If Alexander was betraying her, she wouldn't be the last to find out. She grabbed her coat, her determination stronger than her heartbreak. She had been a loyal wife, a devoted partner. But if Alexander had broken their vows, she would never forgive him. A wife's worst fear comes true. Serena never imagined this day would come. She had spent nights convincing herself that her fears were unfounded, that the late nights, the secrecy, the unfamiliar perfume, they were just coincidences. But the text message had planted a seed of doubt in her mind, and now that seed had grown into a storm of suspicion. She needed to know the truth, even if it shattered her. So she followed the whispers of her heart, the uneasy pull of fate, and it led her to a place she never thought she'd find her husband. A 5-star hotel. The moment of truth. Serena stood outside the grand hotel entrance, her heart pounding against her ribcage. Everything inside her begged her to turn around, to leave, to pretend she never received that text. But she couldn't. She had to see it for herself. Her hands trembled as she stepped through the lavish lobby, her heels clicking against the polished marble floors. The receptionist glanced at her, but Serena ignored the curious stare. Her eyes were locked on the elevator ahead. She knew Alexander well. Room 1207. It was always room 1207, whenever he traveled for business. A number that used to mean trust, security, and devotion. Now it felt like a doorway to hell. With unsteady fingers, she pressed the elevator button. The doors slid open. She stepped inside. As the elevator ascended, her stomach churned, and her fingers tightened around her phone. Please, let this be a mistake. Please, let me be wrong. Ding. The doors opened. Serena stepped out onto the 12th floor, her breath coming in shallow, uneven gasps. Each step down the long, dimly lit hallway felt like a death sentence. And then she reached room 1207. Her hand hovered over the door handle. Her heart thundered. And then she pushed the door open. Her world crumbles. What Serena saw stole the breath from her lungs. Alexander, her husband, the man she loved with every fiber of her being, was in bed with another woman. A beautiful blonde, draped in silk sheets, her arms wrapped around his bare chest, her lips grazing his jawline. Alexander lay there, completely at ease, as if his betrayal meant nothing. Serena felt everything stop. The air in the room became too thick to breathe. Her vision blurred. Her legs trembled beneath her, but she stood frozen, unable to move, unable to process the dagger that had just been plunged into her heart. The man who once whispered vows of forever. The man who held her at night and promised she was the only woman he ever wanted, had betrayed her in the cruelest way possible. A choked sob escaped her lips. Alexander's head snapped toward the doorway. Their eyes met, and that was when Serena realized the most painful truth of all. His eyes held no guilt, no shame, only cold indifference. The coldest words. Slowly, Alexander sat up, running a hand through his messy dark hair, completely unfazed by the devastation on Serena's face. "Serena," he said, his voice smooth but devoid of warmth. She stared at him, her entire soul shattering into pieces. "You ... dot, dot, dot." Her voice trembled, thick with pain and disbelief. "You promised me forever, Alexander." His lips curled into a smirk, and then the words that destroyed her. "You were fun, Serena, but love, that was never part of the deal." The room spun around her. His voice, his words, they cut deeper than any blade ever could. She clutched her stomach, her body trembling as if someone had ripped her heart out and left her to bleed. The blonde woman chuckled, wrapping her arms around Alexander possessively. Serena couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Everything she had believed in, every dream she had built around him, had crumbled in seconds. A sob escaped her lips before she could stop it. Alexander's eyes flickered, but it wasn't regret. It was boredom, like she was nothing more than a game he had tired of playing. She meant nothing to him, not anymore, maybe not ever. A broken wife's collapse. The weight of betrayal crushed her chest, suffocating her. Her knees gave out, and she collapsed onto the cold marble floor. Her hands instinctively clutched her stomach, as if trying to hold herself together. But she was already breaking apart. Tears poured down her cheeks, hot and unstoppable. She had fought for him. She had given up everything for him. She had believed in him when no one else did. And this was what she got in return. Her mind screamed, but her body refused to move. The pain was too much, too unbearable. Alexander stood over her, unmoved. A flicker of irritation crossed his face, as if her pain was an inconvenience to him. "Serena," he sighed, "don't be dramatic. You'll survive." Survive? She had just lost the love of her life. Her heart had just been shattered beyond repair. And he thought she would just survive. Serena let out a broken sob, but deep inside, something shifted. Something darker, something stronger. The Serena who believed in fairy tales was gone. The Serena who thought love could fix everything was dead. She had lost her husband, her faith in love, her trust in everything she once believed in. But one thing remained: pain. And pain had a way of turning into something more powerful than love. The end of Serena's innocence. Serena didn't know how she got home that night. She didn't know how she found the strength to stand up, walk away, and leave the man who had destroyed her soul. But she did. And when she walked into her family home, her younger sister Maya saw her broken state and knew that Alexander had done the unforgivable. Maya wrapped Serena in her arms, her own heart filled with rage. And in that moment, as Serena's tears soaked Maya's shoulder, Maya whispered a vow that would change everything. I swear, Serena, I will never forgive him for what he did to you. And one day, I'll make sure he regrets it for the rest of his life. And just like that, the seed of revenge was planted. A revenge so powerful, it would bring Alexander Knight to his knees. A love discarded like a business contract. The ink on the divorce papers was barely dry, but the damage had been done long before that. Alexander Knight never hesitated. He treated the end of their marriage the same way he handled his business deals: cold, emotionless, efficient, no hesitation, no remorse. To him, Serena had been nothing more than a temporary investment, one he had now chosen to discard. Serena sat in the grand, impersonal office of his high-profile divorce attorney, staring down at the crisp, white pages in front of her. The words blurred together, but she already knew what they meant. It was over. She had loved him, fought for him, believed in him, even when the world warned her not to. And yet, in the end, she meant nothing to him. Alexander sat across from her, completely at ease in his tailored suit, his hands folded on the table as if this was just another boardroom meeting. His voice was cool, indifferent. Sign it, Serena. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Her fingers trembled. Her heart ached. She wanted to scream, to demand answers. How could he throw her away so easily? But she knew. She had always known. Alexander Knight had never truly loved her. She was a momentary distraction, something to conquer. And now that he was done, he was done. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of him. He didn't deserve her tears. With a deep, shaking breath, Serena picked up the pen. Her hands felt heavy, as if she were signing away her very soul. And in many ways, she was. The moment the ink met the paper, her marriage was over. Alexander took the documents, flipping through them as if confirming a business deal had gone through. Good, he muttered, nodding in approval. And just like that, she was nothing to him. A husband who never fought. Not once did he hesitate. Not once did he look at her with regret or sadness. Serena thought maybe, just maybe, there would be a flicker of hesitation in his gaze. That somewhere inside him, he would remember their late-night whispers, their stolen kisses, the way she had looked at him like he was her entire world. But there was nothing. No pain, no sorrow, not even a trace of emotion in his ice-blue eyes. Just a man who had already moved on. And that realization, it destroyed her. Thrown away without a second thought. The moment the papers were finalized, Alexander stood up and buttoned his suit jacket. No goodbye, no final words, just a cold, careless departure. He didn't fight for their love, didn't ask for another chance, didn't even offer an apology. To him, she had been nothing more than a chapter he was now closing. Serena sat there, frozen, her hands clenched into fists on her lap. The pain was unbearable. Her entire world had crumbled. And yet, he walked away as if she never even existed. She wanted to scream, to beg, to demand he look her in the eyes and admit he had destroyed her. But what was the point? Even if he did, it wouldn't change anything. She was alone. Maya watches her sister break. Serena somehow made it home, her body moving on autopilot. Her younger sister, Maya, had been waiting by the door. The moment Serena stepped inside, Maya saw the truth written all over her face. Her big sister, the woman who had always been strong, always believed in love, was broken beyond repair. Her eyes were lifeless. Her lips were pale. Her hands shook at her sides, as if the weight of everything was too much to bear. Maya's heart cracked into 1,000 pieces. Serena, Maya whispered, stepping forward. Serena's lips parted, but no words came out. She looked so lost, so defeated. Maya didn't wait. She pulled her sister into her arms, holding her tightly, protecting her from the world that had just destroyed her. And then Serena broke down. The sobs tore through her body, uncontrollable and heart-wrenching. She clung to Maya, her fingers digging into her sister's shoulders, as if trying to keep herself from falling apart completely. Maya held her, whispering soft reassurances, but deep inside her, something was changing. As she listened to her sister's broken cries, her sorrow turned into something else, something sharp, something dangerous, something called revenge. Maya's anger turns to vengeance. Maya had never liked Alexander. She had always sensed something off about him, his arrogance, his detachment, the way he treated Serena like a prize rather than a partner. But Serena had loved him blindly, and now he had ripped her heart to shreds without a second thought. Maya clenched her jaw, her hands tightening into fists. No, she thought, staring at her sister's broken form. He doesn't get to walk away unpunished. A storm of fury rose inside her. This wasn't just anger. This wasn't just hatred. This was war. Alexander had taken everything from Serena. Maya would take everything from him. She didn't know how. She didn't know when. But one thing was certain. Alexander Knight would regret the day he ever hurt Serena Carter. She would make sure of it. She swore on it. And once Maya set her mind on something, nothing could stop her. The birth of a ruthless plan. Maya wiped her sister's tears, her eyes burning with deadly determination. She would be patient. She would be smart. Alexander thought he could discard Serena and move on with his life, untouched and unaffected. He was wrong. He had no idea what was coming for him. Maya's lips curled into a dangerous smirk. You don't get to break my sister and walk away, Alexander. I'll make sure you feel the same pain you made her feel. And when I'm done with you, you'll be on your knees, begging for mercy. But mercy, Maya Carter didn't believe in mercy. Not for a man like Alexander Knight. And so, that night, as her sister cried herself to sleep, Maya began to plot. And her revenge, it would be ruthless. A sister's oath for revenge. Maya Carter had always been protective of Serena. Growing up, she had watched her sister sacrifice everything for the people she loved. Serena was the kind of woman who believed in second chances, in seeing the best in people, even when they didn't deserve it. But Alexander Knight, he had taken that pure-hearted love and ripped it apart. And now, Serena was a shadow of the woman she used to be. Her light dimmed, her laughter gone, her heart shattered. Maya couldn't accept that. She wouldn't accept that. Alexander thought he could walk away, unscathed, untouched, unaffected. But he was wrong. Maya would make him pay. And she wouldn't stop until he was on his knees, begging for forgiveness. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. And Maya, she was willing to do whatever it took. Unraveling Alexander's weaknesses, Maya spent weeks studying him. She devoured every piece of information she could find on Alexander Knight. His businesses, his habits, his vices, his weaknesses, and he had plenty. His power came from his reputation, his ability to control everything and everyone around him. He was a man who thrived on dominance, on being the one in charge. And if there was one thing men like Alexander couldn't stand, it was losing control. Maya smirked to herself. That's exactly what I'm going to take from you, Alexander. But first, she needed an in, a way to slip into his world unnoticed, and then, like a venomous snake, she would strike. Creating the perfect trap, Maya knew that if she wanted to destroy him, she had to become the kind of woman he couldn't resist, tempting, alluring, a fantasy. So she crafted a new identity, one that Alexander Knight would never suspect. She dyed her dark curls into a rich, honeyed brown. She adopted a new name, a new persona, one that screamed mystery and seduction. Maya Carter, the protective younger sister, was gone. In her place stood Elena Blake, a woman designed to make Alexander fall. She became everything he was drawn to, flirty, confident, unpredictable, the kind of woman who knew how to play the game and win. She practiced her voice, her mannerisms, the way she carried herself. Everything had to be perfect, because one wrong move, one slip, and Alexander would see right through her. But Maya, she didn't fail, she didn't break, she didn't lose. This wasn't just a plan, it was a mission, and she was going to execute it flawlessly. Catching his attention, Maya knew where Alexander would be. He was a creature of habit, after all. Every Friday night, he attended exclusive, high-end parties, surrounded by beautiful women, power-hungry businessmen, and corrupt elites. And so, that night, Elena Blake made her first appearance. She walked into the luxurious event, her silk dress hugging her curves perfectly, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She didn't have to search for Alexander. He found her first. His piercing blue eyes locked onto her from across the room. And just like that, the game had begun. Alexander Knight wasn't a man who chased. Women came to him. But Maya wasn't like other women. She didn't throw herself at him. She didn't flutter her lashes and beg for his attention. Instead, she ignored him. She let him watch her, let him wonder. And that drove him insane. Because Alexander was used to being the one in control. But this time, Maya was the one pulling the strings. The first interaction. Alexander approached her, his presence commanding, powerful. Men like him didn't ask for attention. They took it. "I don't think we've met before," he said smoothly, his voice deep, rich like aged whiskey. Maya turned, letting her lips curl into a playful smirk. "Maybe you're just not as observant as you think." His brows lifted slightly, intrigued, amused, hooked. For the first time in a long time, Alexander Knight had met someone who didn't immediately fall at his feet. And he liked it. "What's your name?" he asked. "Eleanor," Maya purred, swirling her wineglass between her fingers. "And you?" She knew exactly who he was, but pretending she didn't. That made him want her even more. Alexander Knight smirked, tilting his head slightly. "I think you already know." Maya let out a soft chuckle. "Do I?" She turned away, as if he wasn't the most powerful man in the room. And in that moment, Alexander decided he had to have her. The perfect seduction. From that night on, Maya became a permanent fixture in Alexander's life. He pursued her, chased her, wanted her, but she never made it easy. She played the game expertly, making him crave her without ever fully giving in. And every second that passed, Maya gained more control. She learned his secrets, his business dealings, his enemies, and slowly, carefully, she began to unravel him. Alexander thought he was the predator, but in reality, he was the prey. And Maya Carter, she was the hunter, the beginning of his downfall. Alexander had no idea who she really was, no idea that the woman he was so desperately drawn to was the sister of the wife he had destroyed. And by the time he found out, it would be too late. Maya would make sure of it. She would strip him of everything he had ever taken for granted, his reputation, his power, his pride. She would make him feel every ounce of pain he had inflicted on Serena. And in the end, she would leave him broken, just like he had left her sister. Maya smiled to herself, raising her glass in silent triumph. The plan was in motion, and Alexander Knight, he had no idea what was coming. The art of the hunt. Maya Carter had never been the type to play games. But this wasn't a game. This was war. And Alexander Knight was her target. He thought he was the predator, but in reality, he was the prey. For weeks, she had played her role flawlessly, becoming the woman of his dreams, the fantasy he couldn't resist. She was confident, but mysterious, tempting, but unattainable. Every time he thought he was getting close, she pulled away. Every time he thought he had control, she reminded him that she was the one holding the reins. And Alexander, he was falling, hard. He just didn't know it yet. Drawing him in it started with small moments, a lingering glance, a teasing touch, a whispered laugh in a crowded room. She let him chase her. And Alexander, a man who was used to getting what he wanted, couldn't stand it. "You're different," he told her one evening, watching her over the rim of his whiskey glass. Maya tilted her head, feigning curiosity. "Am I? Women usually throw themselves at me," he smirked. "How tragic for you," she replied, with mock sympathy, sipping her wine. His smirk faltered, replaced by something darker, something more obsessive, and that's when she knew. He was hooked. The game of desire Alexander pursued her relentlessly. Expensive gifts, exclusive dinners, private jets. He was trying to buy her, to own her, just like he had once owned Serena. But Maya wasn't for sale. She played along, accepting the lavish attention, the extravagant displays of wealth, but never giving him what he truly wanted. And it drove him insane. "Why do I feel like I'm the one chasing you?" he muttered one evening, his fingers grazing her wrist. Maya smiled, leaning in just enough to make his breath hitch. "Because you are," she whispered. And then she walked away, leaving him standing there, frustrated, desperate, needing more. She was winning. The moment of no return. One evening, she let him take her to a private villa by the ocean. The night was warm, the waves crashing softly against the shore. Alexander had set the mood. Candlelight, fine wine, a perfect intimate setting. He thought tonight would be the night she finally gave in. He stood close behind her on the balcony, his breath warm against her neck. "I can't stop thinking about you," he murmured, his fingers grazing her bare shoulder. Maya turned slowly, tilting her face up to his. "Then don't." His eyes darkened, desire flashing in their depths. He reached for her. And just as their lips were about to meet, she whispered the words that shattered his world. "Remember Serena?" Alexander froze. Maya felt his body go rigid, the heat between them turning ice cold. She smiled, a slow, cruel smile. "You broke her." Her fingers trailed up his chest, feeling his heartbeat pounding beneath his shirt. Now, I will break you. The shock of betrayal. Alexander stumbled back, his face draining of color. He stared at her, confusion flickering across his sharp features. What? His voice was barely a whisper. Maya took a step closer, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Oh, come on, Alexander. Did you really think this was real? His jaw clenched, his breathing uneven. For the first time in his life, Alexander Knight had been played. He had been tricked, seduced, and trapped, and he hadn't seen it coming. Who are you? He demanded, his voice rough with disbelief. Maya smirked. I'm the sister of the woman you destroyed. The words hit him like a punch to the gut. His eyes widened in horror, realization, regret. Serena, he breathed, as if the name alone burned his throat. Maya tilted her head, watching him unravel before her eyes. Did you really think you could ruin her and walk away without consequences? She took a slow step forward, forcing him back against the railing. Did you think you could break my sister and never feel that same pain? Alexander swallowed hard, panic flickering in his gaze. He had underestimated her, underestimated Serena's pain, underestimated Maya's wrath, and now he was paying the price. The fall of a king. Alexander Knight was always in control, always the one calling the shots. But tonight, he was powerless. He looked at Maya. No, not Maya. Serena's sister. And for the first time, he felt fear, not just because he had been deceived, but because he realized something far worse. He had made a mistake, a terrible, irredeemable mistake. Maya, don't do this, he said, his voice raw. But she only smiled. Oh, Alexander. She leaned in, close enough that he could feel her breath against his skin. This is just the beginning. And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving him alone, drowning in his own regret. The art of the hunt. Maya Carter had never been the type to play games. But this wasn't a game. This was war. And Alexander Knight was her target. He thought he was the predator, but in reality, he was the prey. For weeks, she had played her role flawlessly, becoming the woman of his dreams, the fantasy he couldn't resist. She was confident but mysterious, tempting but unattainable. Every time he thought he was getting close, she pulled away. Every time he thought he had control, she reminded him that she was the one holding the reins. And Alexander, he was falling hard. He just didn't know it yet. Drawing him in it started with small moments, a lingering glance, a teasing touch, a whispered laugh in a crowded room. She let him chase her. And Alexander, a man who was used to getting what he wanted, couldn't stand it. You're different, he told her one evening, watching her over the rim of his whiskey glass. Maya tilted her head, feigning curiosity. Am I? Women usually throw themselves at me, he smirked. How tragic for you, she replied with mock sympathy, sipping her wine. His smirk faltered, replaced by something darker, something more obsessive. And that's when she knew. He was hooked. The game of desire. Alexander pursued her relentlessly. Expensive gifts, exclusive dinners, private jets. He was trying to buy her, to own her, just like he had once owned Serena. But Maya wasn't for sale. She played along, accepting the lavish attention, the extravagant displays of wealth, but never giving him what he truly wanted. And it drove him insane. Why do I feel like I'm the one chasing you? He muttered one evening, his fingers grazing her wrist. Maya smiled, leaning in just enough to make his breath hitch. Because you are, she whispered, and then she walked away, leaving him standing there, frustrated, desperate, needing more. She was winning. The moment of no return. One evening, she let him take her to a private villa by the ocean. The night was warm, the waves crashing softly against the shore. Alexander had set the mood. Candlelight, fine wine, a perfect, intimate setting. He thought tonight would be the night she finally gave in. He stood close behind her on the balcony, his breath warm against her neck. "I can't stop thinking about you," he murmured, his fingers grazing her bare shoulder. Maya turned slowly, tilting her face up to his. "Then don't." His eyes darkened, desire flashing in their depths. He reached for her, and just as their lips were about to meet, she whispered the words that shattered his world. "Remember Serena?" Alexander froze. Maya felt his body go rigid, the heat between them turning ice cold. She smiled, a slow, cruel smile. "You broke her." Her fingers trailed up his chest, feeling his heartbeat pounding beneath his shirt. "Now, I will break you." The shock of betrayal. Alexander stumbled back, his face draining of color. He stared at her, confusion flickering across his sharp features. "What?" His voice was barely a whisper. Maya took a step closer, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Oh, come on, Alexander. Did you really think this was real?" His jaw clenched, his breathing uneven. For the first time in his life, Alexander Knight had been played. He had been tricked, seduced, and trapped, and he hadn't seen it coming. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice rough with disbelief. Maya smirked. "I'm the sister of the woman you destroyed." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. His eyes widened in horror, realization, regret. "Serena," he breathed, as if the name alone burned his throat. Maya tilted her head, watching him unravel before her eyes. "Did you really think you could ruin her and walk away without consequences?" She took a slow step forward, forcing him back against the railing. "Did you think you could break my sister and never feel that same pain?" Alexander swallowed hard, panic flickering in his gaze. He had underestimated her, underestimated Serena's pain, underestimated Maya's wrath. And now he was paying the price. The fall of a king. Alexander Knight was always in control, always the one calling the shots. But tonight, he was powerless. He looked at Maya. No, not Maya, Serena's sister. And for the first time, he felt fear. Not just because he had been deceived, but because he realized something far worse. He had made a mistake, a terrible, irredeemable mistake. "Maya, don't do this," he said, his voice raw, but she only smiled. "Oh, Alexander." She leaned in, close enough that he could feel her breath against his skin. "This is just the beginning." And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving him alone, drowning in his own regret. The beginning of his downfall. Alexander Knight was a man who had everything: wealth, power, influence. But Maya Carter was about to take it all away, piece by piece. Just as he had shattered Serena's heart, Maya would shatter his empire, and she would make sure he felt every bit of pain. The first blow, destroying his business. Alexander had built his fortune on secrecy, ruthless deals, and flawless public relations. His reputation was everything. He was untouchable, at least until Maya made him vulnerable. She had spent weeks digging through his business records, collecting information from the people he had discarded, former employees, mistresses, even his rivals. And what she found, it was enough to set his entire empire on fire. Late one night, using an anonymous account, Maya leaked confidential documents to major financial news outlets. The files exposed fraudulent contracts where Alexander manipulated investors, backdoor deals with corrupt officials, illegal offshore accounts hiding millions. By morning, his company's stocks plummeted. Investors panicked. Board members demanded answers. And the headlines, they were merciless. Billionaire Alexander Knight under investigation for fraud. Knight Enterprises crumbles. CEO faces legal scrutiny. Alexander woke up to a nightmare, and it was just the beginning. The second blow, exposing his infidelity. If there was one thing the media loved more than a business scandal, it was a personal one. Maya knew that Alexander's perfect image was a lie. He was known as a charming, respectable businessman, a devoted husband, until he betrayed Serena. But Maya had proof, and she was going to make sure the world saw it. She contacted a top-tier gossip site and sent them videos of him with multiple women in private suites, photos of him leaving hotels at odd hours, leaked messages between him and high-profile women. Within hours, his scandal went viral. Social media exploded with hashtags. Alexander the Cheater, Serena deserved better. Cancel Knight. Enterprises women he had used in the past came forward, sharing their own stories of his manipulation. The public turned against him. Reporters camped outside his mansion. His business partners distanced themselves to save their own reputations. Even his closest allies refused to take his calls. Alexander Knight, the man who had once been on top of the world, was now drowning in disgrace. The ultimate humiliation, his own employees betray him. Maya wasn't done. She went after his company from the inside. She had gained the trust of his employees, whispering the truth about their boss. She convinced his most valuable staff to resign, offering them better jobs through her connections. One by one, his top executives walked away. His best legal team quit. His loyal assistant, who knew every one of his secrets, she turned against him. Without his people, Knight Enterprises collapsed from within. Alexander begged his board members to stay, but one by one, they walked away. And the final, most devastating moment, the company he built, was no longer his. The board voted him out as CEO, replacing him with someone more respectable. Maya had done the impossible. She had taken away his power. The fall of Alexander Knight, with his business destroyed and his reputation in ruins, Alexander had nothing left. The same way he had left Serena with nothing. He sat alone in his empty penthouse, his phone buzzing non-stop with news alerts, his company gone, his wealth frozen by lawsuits, his name forever tainted. For the first time in his life, he was powerless. And the one woman who had made it happen, Maya Carter, she had played him, she had ruined him, and now, as he stared at the wreckage of his life, there was only one person left on his mind: Serena, the woman he had destroyed, the woman he had never truly appreciated. And for the first time, he felt regret. Deep, overwhelming, crippling regret. He needed to see her, needed to beg for forgiveness, needed to find a way to fix what he had broken. But was it too late? The ruins of a ruthless man, Alexander Knight, sat in the dim glow of his penthouse, staring at the empty whiskey glass in his hand. The once untouchable billionaire was now a broken man. His empire gone, his reputation ruined, his power stripped away. And for the first time in his life, he felt helpless, haunted by the past. The silence of his penthouse was suffocating. Alexander had spent years surrounding himself with luxury, drowning in wealth, believing he was above love, above consequences. Now, he had nothing. The only sound was the echo of memories, whispers of a past he had tried to forget. A soft laugh, the warmth of a gentle touch, the way she used to look at him, like he was her whole world. Serena, her name burned in his mind. The woman he had betrayed. The woman he had crushed without a second thought. The woman who had once loved him unconditionally. And now, she was gone. Gone forever. The realization that shattered him. Alexander ran his hands through his hair, his heart pounding against his ribs. How had he been so blind? How had he not seen it before? The way Serena loved him. Truly, deeply, purely. She had given him everything. Her trust, her devotion, her heart. And he had thrown it all away for temporary pleasure, for meaningless desires. He remembered the moment he had told her the words that destroyed her. You were fun, Serena, but love, that was never part of the deal. At the time, he had felt nothing. He had been so sure that love was weakness, that commitment was a cage. But now he realized the truth. Serena had been the only real thing in his life. And he had let her go. No, he had pushed her away. And now he was paying the price. Regret turned to desperation. Alexander's hands clenched into fists. He couldn't just accept this. He couldn't lose her forever. He had to see her, had to beg for forgiveness, had to tell her the words he should have said long ago. I love you, Serena. It didn't matter if she hated him. Didn't matter if she never wanted to see him again. He needed to try. He needed to make this right, because if he didn't, he would never forgive himself. The search for Serena Alexander grabbed his car keys, his heart racing. He hadn't seen Serena since the divorce. Where was she now? Was she still in the city? Was she still wearing the pain he had inflicted on her? Or had she moved on? The thought of Serena with another man, smiling, loving, giving herself to someone else. It killed him. Number. He wouldn't let that happen. He had to find her. But first, he had to face the one person who had destroyed him, Maya. A confrontation with Maya, Alexander stormed into the building where Maya worked. The moment he entered, all eyes turned to him. His disgrace had made headlines. He was no longer the man people respected. Maya sat behind her desk, calm, composed, victorious. When she saw him, she smirked. You look terrible, Alexander, she said, leaning back in her chair. He clenched his jaw. You did this, he said, his voice raw. Maya's eyes darkened. No, Alexander, you did this to yourself. His fists tightened. Where is she? Maya's smirk faded. You don't deserve to know. Maya, please. The word tasted foreign on his tongue. Alexander Knight never begged. But for Serena, he would. He had to. Maya studied him, her gaze sharp, calculating. You think you can just walk back into her life? After what you did? She asked, shaking her head. She's finally healing, Alexander. She doesn't need you. Her words cut deep, but Alexander didn't care. I need her, he said, his voice breaking. Maya stared at him for a long moment. Then she sighed. If you really want to see her, she said slowly. His heart pounded. Was she going to tell him? Then find her yourself. And with that, she turned away. A race against time. Alexander searched for Serena everywhere. Her old apartment empty. Her favorite cafe. She hadn't been there in weeks. He called her old friends, but none of them would talk to him. It was like she had disappeared. And for the first time, the fear set in. What if she had left the city? What if he had lost her forever? But then, one night, as he sat in his car, defeated, hopeless, His phone buzzed. An unknown number. He hesitated, then answered, and the voice on the other end. It made his heart stop. Alexander. Serena. Amon at his lowest. The cold night air bit at Alexander's skin as he stood in front of Serena's home. For the first time in his life, he was afraid. Not of losing money, not of losing power, not of losing control, but of losing her. His heart pounded against his ribs, his hands clenched into fists. This was it. This was his last chance. If she turned him away tonight, he would never get her back. Knocking on a closed door, Alexander's breath was shaky as he raised his fist and knocked. 1 time, 2 times. Silence. His heartbeat echoed in his ears. Maybe she wasn't home. Or worse, maybe she knew it was him and didn't want to answer. Number he wouldn't leave without seeing her. Not tonight. Not ever. He knocked again, harder this time, and then the door creaked open, and there she was. Serena. The woman he had thrown away. The woman who once looked at him like he was her entire world. But now, her gaze held no love, no warmth, only cold, guarded strength. A plea from a broken man. Alexander's throat tightened as he took in the sight of her. She looked different. Not because she had changed physically. She was still breathtakingly beautiful. But because she stood taller, stronger, and it terrified him. Serena. His voice cracked, the weight of everything hitting him at once. She didn't say a word, just stared, like she was looking at a ghost of her past. He swallowed hard. I was wrong. Serena's eyes flickered with something. Anger, disbelief, maybe even amusement. Wrong, she repeated, crossing her arms. That's what you came here to say. Alexander's breath came out shaky. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, he said, his voice raw. But I don't, she cut him off. Her tone was sharp, unforgiving. It stung. But he knew he had no right to complain. This was the pain he had caused her. Now, it was his turn to feel it, a love that no longer existed. You destroyed me, Alexander, Serena said, her voice trembling but firm. You made me feel worthless, like I was just something to be used and discarded. And now, after everything, you expect me to listen to you. Alexander's chest ached. I don't expect anything, he whispered. I need you to know that I regret it. Every second, every word, every moment I hurt you. Serena's lips pressed into a thin line. Regret. She let out a bitter laugh. You regret what you did, or do you regret losing everything? Alexander's stomach twisted. He knew what she was implying. That he wasn't here because he loved her, but because his world had crumbled, because he had nothing left. And maybe, at one point, that would have been true. But now he knew the truth. Even if he had all the money, all the power in the world, none of it mattered without her. I regret losing you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The strength to walk away. Serena's jaw clenched. She shook her head. Alexander, you don't love me, she said. I do, he interrupted, stepping forward. She stepped back. That one movement shattered him. She used to run into his arms. Now, she wanted nothing to do with him. You don't, she continued, her voice steady. Because love isn't something you realize after you've lost it. It's something you fight for while you have it. Alexander's heart ached. She was right. He had thrown her away without a fight, had let his own arrogance destroy the only real love he ever had. And now, she was done fighting for him. Tears burned his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. You can hate me, he said, his voice hoarse. You can shut me out. But please, Serena, Just tell me there was a moment, a single moment where you were happy with me. Serena's expression flickered for the briefest second. Yes, there were moments. Moments where she had truly loved him. Moments where she thought he loved her too. But those moments, they were buried beneath the pain. I was happy, she admitted. But happiness doesn't erase betrayal. Her words were a dagger to his heart. She did love him once, but that love was gone, and it was his fault. Begging on his knees, Alexander took a shaky breath, his body trembling. Then, to Serena's shock, he dropped to his knees, not out of pride, not out of manipulation, but because he truly had nothing left but her. Serena, he whispered, his voice broken. Please, give me one chance. Just one. She looked down at him, a man who once had everything, now on his knees, begging for the woman he lost. But Serena, she didn't feel powerful, didn't feel vengeful. She just felt nothing. And that was the worst part. She had loved him so deeply once, had been willing to fight for him, forgive him, give him everything. But now she was empty, and no amount of begging could bring back what he destroyed. She exhaled slowly. Get up, Alexander. He looked up, desperate, pleading. Please, get up, she repeated, her voice firmer this time. After a long, painful moment, Alexander slowly rose to his feet. His hands shook, his breathing was uneven, and his heart, it felt like it had been ripped from his chest, because he knew he had lost her forever. A plan set in motion. Maya sat in her dimly lit apartment, staring at the photographs spread across the table. Pictures of Alexander, the man who shattered her sister's heart, the man who had begged for forgiveness. But she knew better. Regret wasn't enough. Words weren't enough. She wanted him to feel it, to suffer, not just financially, not just publicly, but in his soul. He needed to experience true gut-wrenching pain, because only then would he understand what he had done to Serena. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was justice, and tonight, she would deliver it. Alexander's despair. Alexander sat in his office, drowning in silence. The empire he built was collapsing. His reputation was in tatters. His wealth was slipping through his fingers. But none of that compared to losing Serena. That was the real punishment. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, the way she had once looked at him with love, and the way she had looked at him last night, with nothing but emptiness. He had begged. He had dropped to his knees. But it hadn't mattered. He had lost her, and no amount of regret could fix that. The thought was suffocating. A knock at the door pulled him out of his thoughts. His heart leapt. Maybe it was her. Maybe she had changed her mind. Come in, he said, his voice rough from exhaustion. The door opened, and there stood Maya. The final test begins. Alexander frowned. Serena sent you, he asked hopefully. Maya let out a bitter laugh. No, Alexander. She didn't send me, she said, stepping inside. I came on my own. Alexander's stomach twisted. He didn't trust Maya. She had been the mastermind behind his downfall. And yet, here she was, calm, collected, holding his fate in her hands. What do you want? He asked, his voice cautious. Maya walked over to his desk, placing a single envelope on it. He stared at it. What is this? Maya met his gaze. Your final test. Alexander's heart pounded. What do you mean? Maya leaned in, her voice soft yet dangerous. This will decide if you are truly sorry, she said. If you truly understand what you've done to my sister. Alexander's hands trembled as he picked up the envelope. He wasn't ready, but Maya had already made the decision for him. Open it, she commanded. The letter that broke him. Alexander tore open the envelope, pulling out a single piece of paper. As his eyes moved over the words, his blood ran cold. It was from Serena. Her words were sharp, cold, final. Alexander, I once loved you more than anything. I would have done anything for you. I believed in you, in us. But love should never be one-sided. Love should never destroy a person. You destroyed me, and now I refuse to let you do it again. This is goodbye. Do not look for me. Do not wait for me. I will never come back. Serena. Alexander's vision blurred. His hands shook. His breath came in short, painful gasps. This was it. Not a chance. Not a door left open. Not even a small thread of hope. She was gone. Forever. And he had no one to blame but himself. Maya's ultimate blow. Maya watched as the reality settled in. As Alexander broke, his entire body shook. His fingers clutched the letter so tightly it crumpled. Tears slipped down his face. Real ones. Maya should have felt victorious. She had won. She had taken everything from him. And yet, watching him like this, something inside her hesitated. Because for the first time, she saw something in Alexander's eyes she never expected. Real, undeniable grief. Not for his money, not for his reputation, for Serena. He had finally understood. He had finally felt what she felt. It had taken losing everything, but he had finally learned. Maya exhaled, forcing herself to stay strong. It's over, Alexander, she whispered. He didn't respond, just sat there, gripping the letter like it was the only thing keeping him alive. Maya turned, walking toward the door. Just as she reached it, she stopped. You were right about one thing, she said. Glancing back at him, Alexander lifted his eyes, filled with pain. You did love her, Maya admitted. Alexander let out a shaky breath. But love means nothing when it comes too late. And with that, Maya walked away, leaving him with nothing but regret. Alexander Knight sat in his empty mansion, staring at the letter in his trembling hands. Serena was gone, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, irrevocably gone. And he had no one to blame but himself. The silence of the house suffocated him. Every room was once filled with her laughter, her soft voice calling his name. Now, it was nothing but echoes of a past he could never reclaim. He had lost his business empire. He had lost his reputation. But none of that compared to the searing agony of losing Serena. His hands balled into fists. Was this who he was meant to be? A ruthless, heartless man who left destruction in his wake? Or was there still a way, a single chance, to prove he could be better? To prove that his love for Serena wasn't just a belated realization, but something that could transform him. The question haunted him, and then he made a decision. He wouldn't let this be the end. The search for redemption. The next morning, Alexander stepped out of his house for the first time in weeks. The city that once bowed to him now ignored him. He had fallen from grace. His former business partners refused to take his calls. The media tore him apart. But none of it mattered. There was only one person whose opinion still held power over him, Serena's. And he would do anything to earn a second chance, even if it meant sacrificing everything. A grand gesture, or true change. Alexander knew Serena didn't care about wealth. Grand romantic gestures wouldn't win her back. So, what could he do? How could he prove that he had changed? He spent weeks searching for ways to make amends, not with empty words, but through actions. He reached out to the charities Serena once cared about, funding them anonymously. He worked with struggling businesses, not for profit, but to genuinely help rebuild what he once crushed. He walked away from the toxic lifestyle that had turned him into a monster. And then he did something that no one expected. He gave up his empire, his last company, his final source of power. He signed it away to Serena, every single penny. She had once supported him blindly, given him love without conditions. Now it was his turn. He would give her everything, expecting nothing in return. Because for the first time in his life, Alexander Knight understood what love truly meant. The moment of truth. Serena sat in a quiet cafe, stirring her tea absent-mindedly. She had built a new life, a peaceful, stronger life. She no longer cried at night. She no longer waited for a man who had once treated her as an afterthought. She was free. And then he walked in. Her heart didn't race. Her breath didn't hitch. She felt nothing. Because the Serena sitting here today was not the same woman who had once loved Alexander Knight. He approached her table slowly, his eyes filled with something she had never seen before. Humility. "Serena," he said softly. She placed her cup down, meeting his gaze. "What do you want, Alexander?" she asked, her voice calm, controlled. He swallowed hard. "I wanted to see you," he admitted. Silence stretched between them. Then he pulled something out of his pocket and placed it on the table. A legal document. Serena's eyebrows furrowed as she scanned the page. Her eyes widened. You signed your company over to me," she whispered in disbelief. He nodded. "Everything," he said. "It's all yours now." She was stunned. "You think you can buy my forgiveness?" she asked, her voice sharp. He shook his head. "No," he said, his voice filled with earnestness. "I don't want forgiveness. I don't expect it. I don't even deserve it. But I needed to do this." "Why?" "Because love isn't about power or control or winning someone back," he said. "It's about sacrifice. It's about wanting the best for someone, even if it means losing them forever." Serena was silent. For the first time, she saw real change in his eyes. Not desperation, not manipulation, true regret, true growth. But was it enough? Redemption? Or too late? Maya walked into the cafe, just in time to see Serena staring at the documents. Her eyes narrowed. "Serena," Maya warned, stepping closer. "You don't owe him anything." Alexander turned to Maya, and for the first time, he didn't retaliate. He didn't argue. He simply nodded. "You're right," he said. "She doesn't." Maya blinked, caught off guard. Serena looked between them, her heart heavy with emotion. She had hated him for so long. But now, looking at the man before her, he wasn't the same person who had betrayed her. Did she love him anymore? She wasn't sure, but she did know one thing. She had finally won, and that in itself was enough. The final choice. Serena stood up, taking the documents with her. "You're free, Alexander," she said, her voice soft yet firm. His chest tightened. He had hoped, prayed, that she would say something else. But he knew she didn't owe him that. He had broken her heart. And now, it was her choice, whether she let him in again. "Goodbye, Alexander," she said, walking away. Maya smirked at him before following her sister. Alexander stood there, watching Serena leave. Maybe she would never come back to him. Maybe he had lost her forever. But at least now, he had earned the right to regret. And that was his real punishment.